if you were to see the back of their head, you'll see a lock go here and then a lock go there and then a lock go here and then a lock go there, rather than a dead center part. I personally wanted a dead center part. Welcome back to my channel. This is Life, Locks and Lessons with Liv, and in today's video I'm talking about my parts, my lock parts, my parting system, how I installed my locks with 2-strand twists, why I parted my hair the way I did, if my parts have changed, how have they changed, when I've combined locks, what impact has that had on my parting, how does my parting system help with my self-maintenance practices, my retwist schedule, how I retwist, the experiences I have with my retwist, just basically everything to do with sectioning up your scalp. Like really dividing your scalp into sections in order to produce the clusters or bunches of hair strands that then lead to locks. I recognize that some people are coming across my page and my platform now, or more recently, more presently, compared to when I started. So obviously I'm now 3 years into my lock journey, so I've had my locks for over 3 years now, and so there could be new people who are seeing my content and they are wondering how I started or why I started the way that I did, because they're starting their own journey. So I thought I would do a video about my parts. Now, the first thing I will say is that I wouldn't say that there's any parting system that is the right one. So it's really down to personal preference, what look you're trying to achieve, also trying to kind of future-proof what styles you're going to want to do, or how you intend to style your hair, if you intend to style your hair, and what impact that has. There's just so many different things that you can think about when it comes to setting the foundation. That's what I call it. Setting the foundation so that it makes life easier or smoother or more aligned with how you will be evolving or transforming as your locks mature. So for me, and there's a lot of pictures and videos of the back of my head out there because I use screen mirroring when I'm maintaining my hair, but also when I'm capturing content about my locks, because obviously most of your hair is at the back of your head, because at the front of your head is your face. So I definitely have content that people can see on my Instagram page in particular that will allow you to see what my parting system looks like at the back and how it started and how it looks now. I started with the intention of having like rectangular shaped parts, and I started with a center part. So not everyone does, but I did, because I installed my 2-strand twists as my starter locks and I do all my hair maintenance. So I wanted to have a center part. Not everyone does, especially if you're doing a bricklaying, I think that's what it's called. I researched parting systems for locks at the beginning of my journey, but not so much now because I have what I have. Like, my foundation is set, I'm happy with it, so I don't need to, I personally am not at a stage in my journey where I need to research that information. But remembering what I found out when I was thinking about how I want to install my locks, I knew that I would want to do pigtails or twin buns. I knew that I would be maintaining my hair myself, and so therefore a center part is just a way of me finding a starting point with maintenance, and also meant that if I plan to do my hair in certain styles, I would like a center part. So that was the very first part that I did when I was installing my 2-strand twist. Now my part is not clean, meaning it's not like a straight line. That may have been the intention in the beginning, but over the years that I've had locks, having clean parts, like where they're almost all the parts are the same size, so there's symmetry or mirroring or whatever, directly parallel lines, was not important to me. It became less and less important to me over the years. Yes, I still have clean parts to the extent of hair strands know where they need to go, or they're reassigned during maintenance processes to the lock that they should be in or the lock that I desire them to be in, but I don't need my parts to be dead straight. And so I don't overly manipulate my hair strands in order to achieve perfectly straight or close to perfect straight parts, because perfection is not something that I am pushing for. I like progress. I like having things that work for me, but it's not the end of the world for me personally if my parts are not perfectly straight. So I let that go, I'd say after maybe a year or so into my lock journey. So I started recording or capturing my retwisting from like July 2021. That was the first time I could see the back of my head with ease because of the screen mirroring setup I use or implemented. So even though I started my locks in December 2020, it was like 6-7 months later when I discovered screen mirroring, which kind of just changed the game for the way I self-maintained. So that first time I saw the back of my head in full, as if I was a hairstylist to myself, and the view that I would have as a hairdresser to someone else, I cleaned up parts at that stage because obviously I had better view, and with more sight, when you know more, you do better. So when you know better, you do better. So I was able to see more clearly rather than having a mirror at the front and a mirror at the back and trying to position and navigate a dual mirror setup. Seeing the back of my head live through screen mirroring allowed me to clean up my parts a bit. Every time I retwist, I still experience changes in my parts because my hair gets really frizzy. My loose textured hair loves to tangle on itself. They like to get all engaged and well acquainted with each other. So I still experience snapping, trying to separate locks. Not full blown marrying, I wouldn't say, but I would say my parts have changed over the years where hair strands have moved. And so therefore over time, what was probably a straight line has probably become a bit more jagged or a bit more diagonal, which again doesn't bother me. As long as I can move the lock at the scalp and there's no hair strands that are pulling across from one lock to another, I call that a clean lock. If all sides of the lock are neat in a way, or keeps the hair strands in that bunch contained. So that may mean that my locks are not perfectly straight anymore. So I did a center part from front to back, and then another part from left to right, using my ears and my forehead and the middle of my eyes as a guide, as you would if you were styling your hair for anything else. And so then I worked in sections. And so what I then tried to do, at least for the back, this is still the case, and the perimeter, is to do a straight line across my head. So that means when I'm retwisting, so it's almost like when I installed my locks with 2-strand twists in December 2020, I had to think forward. I had to think about the styles that I would want to do in the future. So like anything that requires twinning like this, because then I want to have a center part, whereas some people who don't have a center part, if you were to see the back of their head, you'll see a lock go here and then a lock go there and then a lock go here and then a lock go there, rather than a dead center part. I personally wanted a dead center part. Another style I had to consider is if I do a half up, half down, I wanted there to be some balance across both sides of my head, so that when I put my locks up, the half that is down, the weighting of the locks is the same on both sides, or approximately the same. Now, I do have more locks on one side of my head than the other. I've noticed that based on the size of my buns or the size of my pigtails, or sometimes one side of my head is easier to style than another because of the body of the locks or whatever. But that doesn't bother me so much. I mean, I have an odd number of locks, so naturally I do have more locks on one side of my head than the other. And as a whole, it doesn't look too bad. It's only really me who notices the differences, and it's not the end of the world again. But yeah, so I parted down the center and left to right, straight lines across, so that I almost have a clean row of locks as I move from the back to the front of my head. So I have a almost a clean row of locks around the perimeter of my head as well. Now, the thing to think about is everyone's head shape is different. So that's why I say you could have 10 heads in front of you and they all have, 80 locks each. So every head has exactly 80 locks, but the locks look different on each person. So they all have 80 locks, but regardless of the shape of their part or the parting system that they used or have implemented. There are so many other factors that make their head of locks look different to the other 9 people, from like, you know, how many hair strands you have in every square centimeter or square inch of your hair, the thickness of your strands, the texture or hair, the curl pattern of the individual strands will also contribute to the body of the lock, the thickness of the lock. So like something like this could tell me that even if the parts are relatively the same size, I don't think they are, but even if they were, the size of these locks are completely different and they're both on my head. So I have one lock that is thicker, I'd say wider, because it's actually it's a bit more of a flat lock, and this one, which is probably a bit more cylindrical, is that the word? I don't know, but it's a bit more rounded, but it's smaller. So it could be that the coils could be tighter on this side of my head than this one, and so therefore as the hair grows and it shrinks and it buds and it matures into a lock, it starts to take on a different width, diameter of lock to another lock, even if the size of the part was the same. So I would say, for me personally, if no 2 of my locks are the same, then I can't expect my head to be similar to someone else with the same parting system and the same number of locks to look the same. In terms of their locks together won't look the same as mine, because there's so many other contributing factors. All of that is to say that I don't think part size really matters. I think it's more a case of styling potential or styling possibilities. Like when your hair's all gathered together, it's fine, no one really sees your parts, but it's more a case of what styles do you want to be able to do. Something else I like to do is, again, twinning. So say I'm doing a half up, half down combined with twin buns. So there's buns at the front or pigtails at the front, but the back is down. I want there to be a center part for the pigtails, but also a clean part as best as possible, or a line that goes from one ear to the next across my head for the hair that's down. So I'd say my parting system was more centered around the simple styles, low maintenance styles I'll do in the future, rather than trying to achieve a certain diameter or lock size, because I wouldn't have been able to determine that in the beginning. Because if you look at how people's starter locks look compared to mature locks, they are quite different. Like I started with twists that looked like babies, and they were really skinny because they hadn't gone through the budding and the maturation stage that leads to locks. And so therefore it would be unrealistic for me to think that a certain number of strands of hair in one twist is going to guarantee me a certain size of lock months, years down the line. So I'd say the biggest thing to think about when it comes to parting systems or a parting style or shape that you go for is think about how you want to style. I'd say most of my locks are quadrilaterals. Most of my lock parts are quadrilaterals. They are not perfect rectangles or squares, but there's kind of 4 sides, and I can see almost like a line. It may not be a straight line, but it could be a line. But some of them, like I've got a big lock that's on this side of my head that I think is my biggest lock on my entire head. And I think one of its edges is a bit curved, because obviously at some point in your parting, there's some curvature to your head. So that was also something that I came across when I was parting my hair, was recognizing that depending on what part of my head I'm working on, the shape of the part will adjust, especially because I was doing it on myself. I guess if you're a loctician, a hairdresser or hairstylist, if you have someone doing your hair or you're doing someone's hair, you have a bit more control over being consistent with the shape of your parts or with the shape of the parts that you're doing. But when you're doing it on yourself, you almost have to let go of those kind of expectations. You can still have a standard. So I still had a standard. I wanted to be able to have clearly defined or distinct locks rather than freeform. But I let go of tying myself down to having all my locks being the same consistency and weighting. Because I have sideburn locks. I call them sideburn locks. They're the locks that dangle on the side, and they started off pretty much the same size, and they're relatively small because it's just the hair that is kind of just in front of my ear. So there's not as much hair there as there is at the crown of my head. But I think over time, on one side, there were 2 locks that were close together that made sense to combine them. So that naturally changed the size of that lock over time. So when those are down, you may see in pictures or videos that I've done before where I've got my sideburn locks down, you'll see that one of them, I think it's on this side, almost has like 2 locks coming off a combined lock, because that shows like when it was originally 2 individual locks and it became one, but I didn't combine it all the way to the end. So I didn't mind having like 2 kind of prongs or 2 locks coming off one, if that makes sense. So a double-headed lock or double-ended lock. I'd say combining locks can also change the shape of your parts because you're restructuring the foundation in a way. But I only ever combined locks that made sense to combine. So I never forced combined locks, which will then throw me off when I'm then maintaining my hair and I want to work in rows or work in sections and make that process as smooth as possible, because it's already quite a process to go through. I didn't want to make my life harder by overcomplicating my parting system. So it's almost like I had an idea of what I had, a plan, I had a vision of what I was working towards, but I allowed it to be adjusted or personalized. I made it flexible, which is fine. It's like having a plan, having an idea of what you want to achieve, but being adjustable, is that the word? Or being flexible to the things that could come up or could arise as you move through that process, which is what I believe I did. So I actually started off with 85 locks, I think, 85 starter locks. And then in the first few days, I'd say, some of those twists I split and created 2 individual twists. So then I went from 85 up to 89, I believe. And this is whilst my hair was still malleable and I could change it and adjust it because it was twists. Yes, they were starter locks, but they were twists. So therefore I could unravel them and split them up. I think this is when I was obsessing, because you kind of go through, some people, I was one of them, who goes through this stage of obsessing about how many locks you're going to have and how thick they're going to be, and thinking that thickness is purely down to the size of the twist at its current stage, and it's really not. And then it just started to come down over time, and I've now been at 77 locks approximately. That was how much I had when I last counted. 77 is what I say, and that's been for like the last 2 years. So my parts, yes, have adjusted slightly, not majorly. For the most part, they're the same as the ones I started with. And obviously now my locks are mature, they don't change as much, but they have changed over time based on hair strands moving or new growth. New growth comes through. Because something I will say about parting, and this is probably where I will wrap up this video on parting and what I would suggest and what I've experienced. But something to keep in mind, whether you're starting your lock journey, whether you're at the beginning or you're continuing to move through life with locks, regardless of how long you've had them, is know that your lock goals are not necessarily the same as someone else's lock goals, because your lifestyle is not the same as someone else's lifestyle. Like I've mentioned in previous videos, the hair you're working with is different to the hair that someone else is working with in terms of what they've grown themselves and the way in which it's manipulated or handled, or what the products and practices are that are used for each person. Something for me, I've always put health first. Healthy hair has been a higher priority than longer locks or long locks. I would love to get locks that are long and for my locks to gain length, but not at the expense of healthy hair. So I prioritize healthy hair, and a part of me prioritizing healthy hair as a goal, my goal is to continue to have healthy hair regardless of how long my locks are. So part of that vision and plan and manifestation and expectation and standard and want and desire for me to have healthy hair is to nurture, encourage, stimulate new growth at my scalp. So something, I'll let you in on a little secret, something I actually said to myself multiple times in the very beginning, and still do to an extent, is I would love hair strands to grow where my parts are. And if you really think about what I've just said, for me, that means I'm encouraging new hair strands to emerge on my scalp. Because when you think of your parts, so where you see the distinction from one lock to the next, your parts is basically your scalp. And so where you see your parts is where there is no hair, if you really think about it. Because there's space around each hair strand. There's like maybe a little bit of space, but there's space around each hair strand. So where you see parts is where there's no hair. And so for me, I would actually massage my scalp and encourage hair to grow where there is no hair, so that it tells me that new hair strands, new hair follicles are being developed on my scalp. And so therefore, if I'm telling myself that as part of me trying to manifest healthy hair or continue to manifest healthy hair, then that means my parts are going to shift a little bit, because as new hair strands come out through those partitions, that hair strand has to then be assigned to a lock. So as well as all the hair I already have, I would massage my scalp. And I don't just want to stimulate new growth and healthy hair for the strands that already exist, but I also want to stimulate new growth where hair strands have never previously been, if that makes sense. I think what I can do is like show you what my hair currently looks like from the back. So let me see if I can spin around and give you a bit of a view of what my part looks like, my center part looks like when I style my hair in twin buns like this. So give me a second. So it's not particularly straight. I don't know how clear that is, because obviously the ends of the locks that are folded into these buns may be making it harder for you to see. If I also show you from the front, that may help. So if you want to know more, then please like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And I would be happy to answer more questions about locks or share more about my locks, the things that I'm learning, the things that I'm reflecting on. I'd say I'm more in a reflective stage now, because a lot of my routine is still the same as it was or has been for the last 18 months, 2 years. But obviously, if you want to know more, or if there's a way in which I can help you on your journey, if you're at the beginning, or if you're trying to learn something new along the journey that you're on, wherever you're at, or however long you've had locks, then do let me know. This jumper feels so nice. Business up top, comfort down below. You know what I mean? It feels, oh, I just want to hug myself. If you're watching these, that means you watched my video and you got to these little bits and bobs that I kind of throw at the end of my videos. Or you know my channel and you know what I put at the end of the video, and you've just fast forward straight to here. I'm doing the most. Welcome back to my channel. My creative process has got better over the years on this journey. So the Olivia was back then is not the Olivia that I am now. Apologies, but here we are.